Good morning and welcome to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Today's topic is building a new CIO cabinet post M&A. And our guests for today's show are William Halnon, who is the Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President with Republic Services. Good morning, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
And is summer treating you well? We thought it is going to be spring and then summer, but it seems summer has arrived. How is it going?
And summer in Phoenix is just a wonderful time, as you can imagine. Now, we're still in spring, luckily. We haven't gotten to the 115 degrees quite yet.
Okay, so you still are able to get out without having to take 20 showers a day.
Absolutely.
All right, great. And we also have Jim Spitze, who's the Executive Director with Fisher CIO Leadership Program at the Institute of Business Innovation with Haas Business School, University of California, Berkeley. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing fine. It is overcast and drizzling here in Berkeley.
See, now this is what I call swapping of weather. So this is very interesting, the way the whole world is changing around us. But in any case, we are talking about change, and that's where the topic today is about M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions. And we thought of picking this topic because many times when it's status quo, yes, we still fight fires, but it's totally a different ballgame when you are going through any of the disruptions, a merger and acquisition event. So in that space, what happens and what role does IT play? And in fact, when you have to change the way you work, change the team members, the team players, the leadership, the lieutenant, what does it take to build a team which will make that transition successful and also bring success going forward? So with that said, Bill, I'll start with you. Now, whenever we look at M&A, it looks, and it is in fact a business-related event. And yes, IT has been tagging along in the last few decades where we said, okay, so we are going to do this. Now, Mr. CIO or Mr. IT leader, go ahead and deal the integration. Do you think we have earned the respect now that we can say, okay, we will get a seat at the table even before a merger is planned and or even envisioned?
I definitely think so. I think more and more business is beginning to recognize that IT is core to the business and is essential to driving a successful integration of companies. Now, the difference is that all mergers and acquisitions aren't created equal. But when you're talking about the larger mergers of two relatively equal companies, there are a tremendous amount of factors to be successful with the integration and obtaining the synergies. And in those types of mergers, I think that IT plays a very essential part. Myself, I just went through a merger of this type about 3 years ago, and the integration took 2 years. And what was very unique about this merger was that IT was used as really the driving force for bringing the two companies together, because we took a best of breed approach with our technology, and both companies, both legacy companies, had to learn new systems and both had to adapt to form the new Republic Services. So over that 2-year period, IT and really the IT rollout and integration of the new systems was the catalyst, if you will, of the entire merger and integration activities.
Now, Jim, based on what you just heard, do you think this is a norm versus the exception where IT was in fact invited and even given the charge or made the driver of an activity of this magnitude?
First of all, let me say that my experience supports rather strongly what Bill just said. I would mention that Pete Solvik at Cisco, he's one of the Renaissance CIOs, was involved in almost all of Cisco's acquisitions at a very early point. I would say that they tended to do it very quickly. When Chevron acquired Texaco, there was a very tight time frame for merging those two companies. And I could go in great detail into that because it was rather interesting to observe. I think that IT is becoming more and more a driving force. It is so fundamental to most companies these days that it's almost always a partner in not only in the acquisition, but in the evaluation of the acquisition. I'm aware of one company that in the due diligence phase, they always send a senior IT person out from the corporate IT office to spend, I don't want to exaggerate, I believe the policy is they must spend at least 2 weeks on site at the candidate firm to see if they think it's going to be a good cultural fit, to see if their systems are up to snuff, and so forth. I guess that's...
So in a way, what you're saying is, for the most part, IT is broad, but then also I saw a theme that typically when it is an acquisition where you have one party has an upper hand over others, the things are simpler. But then in Bill's case, when what Bill you mentioned in terms of mergers of equals, then it is a little more challenging. Is that a true statement?
Oh, if you're asking me, I think you're entirely correct. If it's an acquisition, then it's not one of equal. But in some cases, when you acquire a company, you don't want to change it. But the old rule, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What you want to do is you want to bring it in as smoothly as possible. But when you're acquiring another company that you are going to essentially merge into the company, that can take longer. It can take a lot more planning. A long list of issues come to the front.
I think on acquisitions, and if you're doing more or less a tuck-in where you're acquiring assets, one of the things that is often overlooked, shouldn't be, is the asset of human capital. And that new company that is being pulled in, even if you're going with the acquiring company's technology infrastructure, the people that are within that company being acquired, the IT personnel, need to be looked at and folded in as well, because even though they may not be legacy and familiar with the technology, there's a potential for a great deal of skills and the potential to top grade staff by looking very closely at the human capital element.
No. So Bill, if we were to take a situation where perhaps, let's take the worst case example among all different events in M&A that could happen, is that you've got two organizations who have both successful track record, but at the same time, they're heavily political. And then you're bringing the two companies together. How does management, and who within the management has the courage and has to take the courage to basically get the top IT leader chosen between the two top dogs in the respective companies for IT?
To really just select the CIO. It falls upon, obviously, the executive team and the CEO. One thing that I think is very important is to have that executive org structure defined early when these events occur, so that you know what will be the reporting relationship of the CIO to be. And then the selection becomes it is a personal event. It is a beauty pageant of sorts where you take into effect, or hopefully the CEO takes into effect, and the rest of the executive team, the background, experience, the fit, I think, is very important. How well does the CIO, if from either company, fit into the executive team? I don't think that systems that are being selected necessarily should influence the choice of the CIO. I think it really should revolve around who's the best fit for the job. And I think that's fairly standard in large mergers, that you have this sort of decision-making process as you go through the entire executive team.
So Jim, in your experience and the way you must be talking to quite a few organizations, what has been the experience in this decision-making? Is it subjective? Is it fraught with prejudices and or impressions that were made over the years, or somebody seeking favors or pulling in a favor?
First of all, I want to recite a book for the listeners to go out and get a copy of it. And I don't get any commission from this. In fact, it has no relation to Cal Berkeley at all, but it's a brand new book, Hard Facts, Dangerous Half-Truths, and Total Nonsense by Pfeiffer and Sutton. And heaven forbid it's the Harvard Business School Press. But it talks about the importance of cultural fit that Bill just alluded to. When you bring in a new team, they've got to fit with the culture of the sort of the merged entity. Now, with respect to my own experience, we at the Fisher Center here, we deal with probably 100 or so large company CIOs. And contrary to, I think, the public impression, I really think that a lot or most executive selection is pretty darn objective. I think most executives try to put together the best darn team they can get their grubby hands on. And I don't want to sound grumpy when I say that, but I think most executives try to do a good job. They try to build good teams. They try to be objective. If they let a hidden agenda or grudges or things like that get in their way, in my experience, those people don't last very long. I'm pretty optimistic about most executives, and particularly the objectivity.
I would agree, Jim, and I think that the evolution of the CIO over the last couple decades has been one of being really a business partner. And that's what the CEOs, at least the ones who I have worked for, are looking for, is who will be my best business partner and help to drive the company where it needs to get to. So I think that, and all CEOs are different as well, but CEOs, the good CEOs going into a merger, will look for that individual who can provide that really business partnership and leadership to get the company where it intends on going.
No, I completely agree.
On a quick break, listeners will be right back, and let's continue this conversation. So perhaps we would have a good objective selection between the two top dogs and we pick the one. Now, how does that individual go about dealing with the duplicate set of direct reports that are handed over to them and then make the selection subsequently to build a cabinet? Let's explore this more when we come back. Please stay tuned.
We're always talking business. Talk to an expert. Call now, toll free, 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile and connected. To compete, you want data center flexibility, so you can adapt quickly to changing business needs while keeping information safe. Introducing Enterprise Cloud Compute Services, HP's solution for managing secure servers, storage, and networks, delivered as a service. Pay only for what you need. Create order out of chaos. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Start shaping your cloud at hp.com. We live in an instant-on world, mobile, connected, and fluid. Competing in this world takes a special kind of workplace technology that adapts to change, that allows seamless and personalized interaction. Introducing Workplace 360, HP's full lifecycle desktop management solution, delivered as a service. User subscriptions allow you to gain financial control and flexibility. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Visit hp.com for answers.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Aul.
Welcome back. Let's take this question. Bill, what do you think could be the best next steps once the top dog is selected in the merged organization? How do they go about handling these set of duos, if you will?
I think first and foremost, it's defining the IT organization going forward. Mergers are a great opportunity to restructure the IT org that is maybe more difficult to do when you're in a steady state mode. Defining the organization, building that, and really establishing what will be the management positions are first and foremost. then I also think that there should be a transition between both CIOs to the new CIO. Hopefully there's a period of time for planning between them. Hopefully there's the spirit of cooperation from the CIO that is exiting. And during that time, really sharing input from both sides to put together that combined team, I think, is essential. It's a very difficult time. There's no doubt about it, but you need input from both sides. And as Jim alluded to, objective input from both sides to really craft the best team. And you need to look at potential with the management team who really are the fast trackers, the ones that maybe we can put into new positions that have been created in the organization that didn't exist before, and who will be successful in those positions. Great time to really establish the organization that will go forward and to shuffle the deck really and put people into new leadership positions, maybe give them that promotion that they were deserving of, but had been blocked from in the previous organization.
Jim, based on what Bill just mentioned, let's
I didn't hear
assume
you on that.
you could
You can hear me?
No, I didn't hear. Say again.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, Bill did mention about the success rate is pretty good when it comes to getting the two leaders to discuss, and basically one person becomes the top dog and the other person essentially provides the necessary support. The follow-on question to that is, Jim, based on all the discussions that you've had, do you think when there is a merger and there are the discussions happening between the two potential respective top dogs and they're brought together and one person is not chosen, do they have the emotional intelligence and the strength to accept so-called defeat and still continue to support the person who was the chosen one and help them become even more successful? At the end of the day, we are talking about human beings here.
First of all, I wrote a note to myself there. This is a difficult and very human challenge. What happens when you have two teams and they are both of excellent quality? And I've seen that happen. I can think of one case where a selection was made of, I think, a very good person, and another very good person got his nose out of joint and left and did well in a subsequent career. But I think that was a mistake on management's part. If you've got two good people, somehow you never want to lose talent. And somehow you've got to figure a constructive role for the person not selected that is challenging and is something that will keep them engaged. And I can't give any simple answer as to how to do that, but I've seen it happen. I think I can cite one example. I think they did something like that at Chevron when they acquired Texaco. And I can think of Chevron ending up with a really strong IT team. And I can think of some failures in some other companies. But I think one of the challenges when you do this is you don't want to lose good people, although you are almost forced to promote somebody and not somebody else. I don't have any simple answers there.
I would also add that I've seen situations where both CIOs were kept, and one CIO was put into a secondary position reporting to the CIO. And I don't advocate that approach either, because I think that one of the big challenges of the new organization is really establishing that new leadership. And if you have the old CIO who was not selected, you constantly battle his legacy team following his or her direction and not the leadership of the new CIO. And it's a challenge. It really is. I've been in that position before, and it is a challenge, and ultimately it doesn't work out. So if there are any CEOs listening in, don't go that direction.
Now, Bill, question for you would be is, how soon should we trigger this merger? Because, of course, we are all eager to integrate the companies and get the most value out of the M&A event, right?
Sure.
You want to get, so ROI. Now, if you do it too soon, then people have not settled. The dust is not settled. And if you do too late, then you are double bleeding, if you will. So what is that appropriate time? Is this more like a gut that tells you that, okay, now's the time, or there are some calculations, some mathematical formulas used or something, which is a little more realistic?
I think the earlier the better, quite honestly, especially the larger these mergers are. There's an incredible amount of planning that has to go into, from the IT side, how we are going to integrate around a common set of systems. Now, if you're maintaining both company systems, you're taking that approach, then you may not need as much lead time, but you're not going to get the synergies you're looking for either. So if you're trying to get to a common platform, which is what I've been involved with in my various M&A type of activities, you need the lead time, clearly plan out the full activities, and it's the earlier the better. The dust isn't going to settle for some time. You're going to have to be working on these efforts and really crafting the organization, building the culture as the dust is settling. Most of the time, you're kicking up the dust by creating change through the organization as the entire integration takes place.
So, Jim, as of course we are doing things behind the scenes to choose the new leader, the new cabinet, and other integration activities, what do you see organizations do to insulate the customer experience from all this turbulence internally?
What do I see companies doing to insulate the customer? Oh, boy, I don't have any simple answer. I think I can think of a few examples, but I'm.
So let's rephrase the question.
Yeah.
If customer experience is always the key for us to maintain continuity, we did all the merger, but essentially we were both having a common objective to serve the customer well and to meet and exceed their expectations. Do you think realistically we are able to show the customer the same service levels and the same overall experience across all touch points, and while there's an M&A going on? Is this something which is still a dream, or people have made it a reality? What's the fact out there? Do you see that whenever there's an M&A, the customer service level dips, you lose some revenue?
No, I don't agree with the necessity of a dip. I've seen what Cisco did. I've seen some acquisitions by Intel, and I think they were well planned. They were well executed. I would say the critical thing is advanced planning, the no surprises approach to management. I saw what Sun Microsystems did in its better years, and all of those, Cisco, Intel, Sun, I could probably cite a few others, a lot of advanced planning. And then when the acquisition or the merger occurs, I totally agree with Bill. You don't sit around and wait for the dust to settle. You move forward with your management changes as swiftly as possible and get beyond them.
So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. And Bill, when we come back, let's talk more about the same subject, because devil is in the execution and the implementation. So while you can tell the Wall Street that we are going to give you double-digit returns, etc., based on this M&A, but behind the scenes, you have to do whatever it takes to keep the customer happy all along and let them, in an ideal scenario, keep them insulated from any such turbulence that might be happening internally. So what all, in your view, that you've done in your organizations as you went through the M&A event, or when also, what have you seen your counterparts do in other companies? Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Now you don't have to stay linked to your desktop or laptop. Take Voice America on the go and listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile, connected, and fluid. Competing in this world takes a special kind of workplace technology. that adapts to change, that allows seamless and personalized interaction. Introducing Workplace 360, HP's full lifecycle desktop management solution, delivered as a service. User subscriptions allow you to gain financial control and flexibility. The Instant On Enterprise is here. Are you ready? Visit hp.com for answers. We live in an instant-on world, mobile and connected. To compete, you want data center flexibility, so you can adapt quickly to changing business needs while keeping information safe. Introducing Enterprise Cloud Compute Services, HP's solution for managing secure servers, storage, and networks, delivered as a service. Pay only for what you need. Create order out of chaos. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Start shaping your cloud at hp.com.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Aul.
All right. So, Bill, what do you think can be done to get the challenges under control, or while we're going through that M&A journey, keep the customer happy or happier based on what their experience has been all along, and let them not get impacted?
I think throughout the entire planning segment of the integration, you first and foremost is minimizing the impact on the customer. You absolutely don't want to lose your customer base as you go through one of these exercises, whether it means that you're going to bring on additional customer service staff up there, have a very strategic communication plan driven to the customer. You have to go take the extra steps, whether it's the sales force going out and meeting with the customer and explaining this transition. You want to do everything in your power not to lose the customer base from really either company and for them to get disenchanted. But I think how you really work to continue to drive the changes within the company and to insulate it from your customers, number one, and it's something IT does all the time, but it's now essential from a corporate level, is to really have a project management office and to deal with this program in a fashion that is corporate in nature. It's not just, it's really all of the projects need to be driven through the corporation. IT has its projects, sales has its projects, HR has their projects, and the coordination of this from a corporate PMO is absolutely essential to the success of doing it in a structured fashion with the eye, again, of not losing the customers and preserving a positive customer experience.
I chime in there with one sort of negative comment on the PMO. I agree with Bill that you have to have an effective planning mechanism, but I have seen so many PMOs that were not very successful that I
agree with you there,
negative
Jim.
on PMOs. But
I think it's essential when you get into a program of this nature. A lot of corporations don't have, when you look outside of IT, they don't have the project mentality or the program mentality. So it's a whole new ballgame for them to be dealing with multiple projects ongoing at the same time. And that needs some coordination, whether it's PMO or call it something else. It has to be really an orchestrated event.
I entirely agree. Another thing that was said was customer communication. I'm aware of one company that this wasn't a merger, it was a major information systems change that was going to affect the end customer. And I would say they almost overdosed on customer communication, and it worked very well. The new system was indeed better. The implementation was surprisingly smooth, but the customers really felt that they were involved in the thing. And it worked beautifully. And actually, the company gained market share by virtue, I think, of this very skillful letting the customers know what was going to happen, and an educational program that it wasn't all that costly, but boy, did it prove to be valuable.
So, Jim, imagine you were in the shoes and you were the chosen one among the two top dogs in a company during an M&A event. And you have to now take the first steps to get your direct reports and lieutenants selected, and you got a duplicate set or perhaps like a 2 sets. And you got to pick up who will be the ones who will try to bring on the cabinet. What do you think should be the first set of activities that chosen leaders should go about doing?
I won't go into ancient history, but I've done that a few times. And I actually gave a talk on this a while ago. My approach is to go and interview every single solitary person in the IT organization that has been acquired. I'm assuming that I already know my own shop, or if it's going to be 2 but I interview every single solitary person. And some people look at me like you must be nuts, but it's amazing what you learn when you do that. And you begin to figure out who are the real contributors. In some case, the leadership team, there can be some real gems buried a few levels down. And so my first step is always to go out and find out what I've got. I think Bill mentioned earlier the human capital. Paul Lazzara was the founding CIO of Time Warner, and he and I talked about a year ago. And his experience at Time Warner, when he merged all of the various magazines, IT shops together, was, he said, you have to forget the technology issues. You have to forget the process issues. You really have to spend your time focusing on the human capital issues. And so I think that's a long answer to a short question. I just go out and I really want to know what I've got in terms of human beings. How can I take this team and make it into a team that is going to do better things?
So, Bill, since the benchmark would have changed, the landscape would have changed, and even the people mindset of your own team could have changed because now it's a disruption. There is some fear, uncertainty, and doubt that might get injected. So if you had to go and look at what you will do now going forward, even your own prior experience may not 100% be relevant to what you're going to do going forward. And how are you recalibrating your own thinking at that? I imagine you were in those shoes. And go ahead.
No, I was waiting for the question to complete that. There is. I think your fear, uncertainty, and doubt is rampant in these types of times. And one of the things that is incumbent upon the CIO to do is to really turn down the temperature on that. To be honest, there won't be a position for everyone, but really to lower the overall temperature and communicate constantly that the goal will be that everyone will be treated fairly. I agree completely with Jim in that interviewing, and the more interviewing that you can do as a CIO or a leader in the organization is critical. Sometimes it may not be. I applaud Jim for interviewing everyone. I was not able to do this bad in this last one, but I worked through the various levels of management, and I certainly interviewed all of the potential management candidates. In terms of the landscape changing, it will. And so you can't always, to your point, I can't say that the next merger that I go through, if I go through one as the CIO, will be like the last one or previous ones that I've gone through. They're all different. And part of the role of the CIO is to have the foresight as to what does that organization look like? What will be the challenges in the new organization? And really to find the people, to find the talent, as Jim mentioned, that are going to fit in nicely with that organization. And one of the things that's very hard to calibrate because of the fear factor and the uncertainty is that in times of massive change like this, you have to try to factor out who really has the desire to be part of the new team. You could have great individuals and really great producers in the old organization. Now that their world has changed completely, do they really want to be part of the new team? And do they like where not only IT is going, but the new company is going? And somehow, through the interviews that Jim mentioned, you've got to factor that out. And unfortunately, we're all human, and you don't always sort out those elements. Sometimes you have people who a year later and a year after the merger decide, you know what, this organization isn't what I expected, and I really don't want to be a part of it. But you try to catch those people early in the process. Through your question?
Yes, you did. And Jim, to follow on to this is, suppose you mentioned that you'll interview the other side, right? The other organization that merged and or got acquired.
Yep.
How about interviewing your own people? And you might see that people who really were rock stars and really did well and you were very happy with them, there might be some signs that these people no longer are going to be good for the merged entity. What could those signs be? What could those negative signs be when you interview your own people? Because something would change on that side too.
First of all, I've always tried to interview at least a third as many members of the user community as there are in IT. So it's a big interviewing problem, but I really can't stress the value of it. In my own group, I have gone and talked to them all, not maybe individually, but in small group. And I've tried to figure out, and you have to read between the lines, and that's something I'm not always very good at, who's really on board. And I wish I had a simple answer, but you just have to get to know the people and figure out Charlie or Mary are unhappy with this, and maybe it's time for them to leave. I think there was some comment made, the words fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which reminds me of IBM's old marketing approach. I believe the most effective way to counter fear, uncertainty, and doubt is by communicate. When in doubt, tell people what you're thinking, even if it scares them a little bit. You don't want to say something that's stupid, but let them know what's going on. The corporate rumor mill in almost all large companies is always full of half-truths, and they're dangerous. They can discourage people. And the best way to counter them is with open communications. So now have I answered your question or evaded it?
We'll further explore this. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I'd like to take the question to a next level where, Bill, for example, we do put these people to test. We talk to them and perhaps even do a try and buy, in the sense, have both parties work in their respective companies in the merged entity for a little bit. You see them in action and then see how are they performing and then try to make a decision. Now, the question is going to be, is that initial trial enough for you to see the true colors as they would emerge in the coming days when finally you make the choice? And if you do find that your decision on the candidate was wrong, who is to blame or who is supposed to be accountable? Because it's very lonely up there at the level at which you operate. Who tells you, or who can you bounce your ideas off of, that out of these 20 people, I need to pick 10? Who are the 10 that I should pick even after trying and buying? Please stay tuned. When we come back, we'll explore.
The future of online TV is here. View exclusive content from your favorite talk radio hosts and new programs that you can't see anywhere else. Visit voiceamerica.tv today.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile and connected. To compete, you want data center flexibility, so you can adapt quickly to changing business needs while keeping information safe. Introducing Enterprise Cloud Compute Services, HP's solution for managing secure servers, storage, and networks, delivered as a service. Pay only for what you need. Create order out of chaos. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Start shaping your cloud at hp.com. We live in an instant-on world, mobile, connected, and fluid. Competing in this world takes a special kind of workplace technology that adapts to change, that allows seamless and personalized interaction. Introducing Workplace 360, HP's full lifecycle desktop management solution, delivered as a service. User subscriptions allow you to gain financial control and flexibility. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Visit hp.com for answers.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now. Toll free, 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Aul.
Welcome back. So, Bill, what if we tried and bought the final candidate? So you let both parties or both respective lieutenants work. Maybe there is a double dipping, or not exactly double dipping. You are essentially getting two people to do one person's job, but they work together and you pick the best. Do you think that would fly?
I think that's a very challenging approach. I think that because part of the overall goal is to get the organization defined and solidified and begins the healing process, if you will, and eliminate a lot of that fear. The longer that you prolong that, where you have potentially two candidates going for one position, it really just prolongs that agony and the fear and the murmurs and rumors that are rampant through the organization. I very much agree with Jim's approach of interviewing the users and others in the company to get feedback. But I think it's incumbent that you make decisions as quickly as possible. I also suggest that you work through the levels of the organization. So the CIO is going to be defining his direct reports, then working with those directs to interview and build out the management team, and then getting down to the various staff levels. So it takes time just going through those gates, but having two people basically involved or working for the same ultimate position, I think, number one, when you're going through a merger, you're trying to reduce costs, you're trying to get to that headcount quickly as possible so you can attain the overall synergies. And so there's pressure from HR and finance to get to that final state. And I think it is leaps of faith. You make your best choices and you move on. So I don't know that I'd advocate the try before you buy approach.
Now, Jim, if we do not do that, are we not very close to flipping the coin and pick up one of the two? Because both may have come and may have been existing in their respective companies, if they were successful at least, because they were performing. So if you are too early in terms of making a decision and under pressure because you don't want to continue the agony that, as per Bill, then is it more like a luck versus due diligence in terms of selecting your direct reports?
Well, I don't think so. I think if you've done a good job of talking to people, you've talked to some of the internal customers, how the team works, I don't think you're flipping a coin at all. I think you're trying to make an objective decision. In some cases, I've gone to outside reference checking, and I've done it personally. reference checking these days is so fraught with legal repercussions that the people won't tell you anything. But my experience, and this is recent, is that you can still get some pretty good external references. And I totally agree with Bill. You've got to make these decisions. The longer you delay them, the more problems you have. I think a manager's skill at being objective in selecting people is one of the major skills that a really good executive has to have. There's another side to the question is, what do you do when you make a mistake? And I think that one of the worst things you can do is tolerate that for very long. If you suddenly wake up one morning after promoting somebody and you say, Sally or Bob or whomever isn't working out, and you know it, the sooner you correct that, the better. And I can speak from personal experience. My wife would give me a bad time. She'd say, Jim, do something. And
no, you do. You have to, because you're creating essentially a new organization that is looking at you for leadership. And if you've made a mistake, just admit to it and correct it quickly, because the change takes time. It takes months and even years, year plus, to really get the tightness and cohesiveness of the new organization. And so you have that period of time to make the changes, adjustments. If you have made some hiring or wrong choices, or a lot of times people are in the wrong role too. You've put them in a position that's different from what they had before. They're not successful in it. And so you have the option of moving them to another position or exiting them from the organization. But the key, as Jim alluded to, is being objective, because the team can see that if you are objective and you're not showing favoritism to one organization or the other, the more you can build a team that takes the best from both organizations, the more successful you're going to ultimately be.
On behalf of the show and our listeners, thank you so much, Bill and Jim, for sharing your thought. It looks like it's not an easy task to bring the two organizations together. And we hope that CIO gets multiple paychecks and a lot of immunity and support from executive management to pull this off. But then whatever that is that we are dealing with in today's day and age and going forward, I personally believe, and I'm sure listeners would agree, that M&A brings a lot of value. There's a lot of work that's ahead, but then CIOs and IT has got a lot to contribute towards the overall success of the endeavor. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
And listeners, if you have any comments or questions, send us to views@ciotalkradio.com. That is views@ciotalkradio.com. Thank you again for listening to CIO Talk Radio. This is Sanjog Aul, your talk show host. Till next week, take care and God bless.